Hey, everybody. It's Evan Grant from DallasNews.com, the Dallas Morning News, your friendly neighborhood Rangers insider. Do you guys like the awkward pauses? Can I just ask you that? Because, my brain freezes. I don't know if it's old age. I don't know if I'm just camera shy. Usually I'm pretty hammy, but talking to myself into a camera seems to make me a little bit nervous. Anyway, let's get to some stuff here. Remember, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe up at the top here, wherever the little subscribe button is. I'm trying to push it. Push the subscribe button, like it, comment, all that stuff. Give me suggestions. Tell me what to do. I like to be told what to do. Anyway, all right, so we got some things to get to here this week on your Texas Rangers. I got three topics I want to talk about. Starting pitching, actually pitching in general. JP Martinez and the future. And speaking of the future, we'll get into a little bit of Jack Leiter talk here at the end. But let's start with the pitching because, listen, this team, as I record this, is off to a 12-2 start in August. Yes, there have been some offensive outbursts. There have been back-to-back games over the last two nights before I recorded this on Wednesday morning, in which the Rangers had a 5 RBI game from a player. They've got 9 of those this year, the most in the major leagues. Tuesday night it was Corey Seager. Monday night it was Marcus Semien. But as Bruce Bochy said Monday night or Tuesday night after the game, everything starts with the starting pitching, and it's true. And what's remarkable to me is how dramatic the turnaround is with the starting pitching. You expected there to be some changes when the Rangers went out and got Max Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery, but it has been complete. And in some ways, Max Scherzer was coming in here, and in the immediate short term, he was replacing Nathan Eovaldi, who had been this team's best pitcher. So you were really trading out a good pitcher for a good pitcher, and then you had 4 other spots that in July really struggled. This team had a 5.12 rotation ERA in July. It had the worst rotation strikeout to walk rate. I think it was 1.59 walks per or strikeouts per walk in July. It looked like a rotation that was flailing. And to Chris Young's credit, he went out and got 2 starters. And by getting those 2 starters in Max Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery, and 1 reliever in Chris Stratton, he thought he would both reinforce the starting rotation, be able to add some depth to the bullpen, make bullpen roles a little bit more clear, and be able to eliminate some of the what I like to call, what I call the soft underbelly of the bullpen, right? When you've got to go to a reliever in the 5th or the 6th in a close game, or when you're behind and you go to a guy that you don't, I would say as a manager, you probably have confidence, but not the same degree of confidence that you have in some of your other arms. So that was this club's situation going into August. What have they got? Well, Scherzer, Montgomery have started 6 games at this point in time. The Rangers have won 5. Those 2 guys have been simply outstanding. Quality starts. I think all 6 of the starts qualified as quality starts. Add in Stratton, and what you get is, for 48 innings so far in the first 2 weeks of August, a 2.05 ERA from that trio. And that's only that high because Stratton allowed a 2-run homer in the 9th inning on Tuesday night when the Rangers were up 7-1 before finishing out that, before Will Smith finished out the game because he needed a day of work. But overall, the rotation has a 2.14 ERA in August, which leads the major leagues. And because of it, it has shot back up to the top in baseball in rotation ERA. I think it's 3.66 for the year. maybe a little bit lower than that. I'm sorry, I didn't jot that note down. But there has been some kind of effect, and I wrote a little bit about this in my column in Wednesday's paper, and for Wednesday Online. You can theorize about a lot of things. That Scherzer's intensity and focus has had an impact on the rest of the rotation. Certainly, there's something to that. I talked to a number of guys yesterday: Dane Dunning, John Gray, Nathan Uvalde, all of whom said, "Listen, you add a guy who's got that kind of focus, it's going to have an impact on other guys." I think competition played a role, particularly for Andrew Heaney and for Dane Dunning. Both those guys were in danger of potentially moving to the bullpen. Both of them have had very strong starts to August. Dunning has had set a career high in strikeouts with 11 in his first start in August, then surpassed that with 12 in his third start of the month. He is striking more guys out. He is. He said he had a reset with Mike Maddox and a kind of an evaluation at the end of July. Found some things. Go into those more at another point in time. Found some things, and it has allowed him to, be more aggressive and be more effective once again at in the rotation. I also think you cannot diminish the impact of Mike Maddox here. My experience with pitchers who get traded mid-season is that there can be a little bit of a kind of a dip and then takeoff. There's a lot involved in that traditionally. Guys are moving cross country. We've got family stress because of that. They are adjusting to an entirely new team, new teammates, new approach, new pitching coach. Basically, you're talking about new language. So that can often be an issue. But Mike had each of these three newcomers. He had Max Scherzer for 2 years in Washington when they won back-to-back Cy Young awards. He had Stratton and Montgomery for about half a year last year with St. Louis. And both those guys showed improvement once Mike got with them. And what we have seen here is continued improvement. Stratton hadn't walked a guy until last night with the Rangers, hadn't allowed a run. Montgomery is tweaked his repertoire just a little bit. He's toned down his use of the sinker. Maybe he got a little bit too predictable with that. And in almost each start, he's kind of featured another pitch almost in a co-starring role, upping its usage a little bit. Cutter the first time out, changeup second time out. Last night against a team that he thought and that the Rangers thought was really good at hitting those sinkers down and away, he was able to bust a lot more guys in with his four-seam fastball. Set up a couple of guys really well that way, and then got strikeouts by going back to the two-seamer, the sinker when he needed to. So you ended up with 6 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts, another impressive performance from him. And I give credit to, as I said, the Scherzer impact, the competition level, Mike Maddox, and I really do think this is I think that it's easy to talk about chemistry when a team is winning, but I do think that this clubhouse has been really welcoming to the newcomers. I think they've embraced them really well. I think you've got some outgoing teammates who welcome guys in. I know there's a lot of talk on my social media about why is Brad Miller on this roster, on the 40-man roster, even though he's on the IL. I think he is a guy who's really good. Has served a role in that way. Uvalde served a role in that way as a pitcher, even while he's been on the IL. The catchers have been very, I don't want to say assertive, but they've been very proactive, and it's a good team. So all the potential distractions. Can't rule them all out, because when you're moving a family, you're moving a family. And listen, even Scherzer has talked about the stress that goes along with that. And this is a guy whose focus is legendary. This is a guy who's been through a trade in the middle of the season before. And so it doesn't get any easier. But these guys have picked up not just where they left off, they've picked up a notch in their own performance. So that is a testament to everything that the Rangers have done, from the scouting to the acquisition to the integration of this roster. All right, let's move on to another move that is looking really smart, and that is the addition of JP Martinez to the active roster. Was added over the weekend for Travis Jankowski when Jankowski went on a paternity leave. But all JP has done in 5 days is earn himself the ability to stick around and earn himself more playing time. And hey, by the end of this season, maybe he earns himself a more significant role. Right now, I would tell you that JP Martinez has showed all the characteristics and traits you would like of a guy to serve a specialized role. I'm multitasking. Can you tell? You know why? I was afraid my phone was going to ring, and I didn't turn my ringer off, so I had to do that. Because people want to talk to me. People know that your insider constantly on the phone. Usually it's with a telemarketer, but nevertheless. Anyway, so JP Martinez, shown all the characteristics that you want from a guy who would fill a role, particularly for the expanded roster time in September and the stretch drive, when you can add 3 roster spots. And, you know, as a bench player in the postseason, you look for a guy who can either play really good defense, guy who can run, or obviously a guy with a big bat. Well, Martinez has taken good at bats. He's already taken 2 walks in 5 games. Leody Taveras, who is struggling, has taken 4 in since the 1st of July. So that gives you an idea of it can be difficult. This stuff can be difficult, and JP has done a really good job. I've been really impressed with how aggressive he's run the bases. He scored the tying run in the 9th inning at San Francisco on Sunday, scoring from second on an infield hit, in which Ezekiel Duran did a great job of hustle down the first base line. But JP never broke stride. And again, this is a guy dealing with a new environment. Third base coach Tony Beasley, new environment, understood the read, understood the call, never broke stride, scored, tied the game up. That's a game-changing play. And it's something the Rangers really haven't had from their speed guys this year, whether it was Bubba Thompson or whether it was Leody Taveras. You know, I will say this, that Leody has 11 steals in 14 attempts, and the steal percentage is fine. What is a little bit concerning is I think the Rangers would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive. I would think that by this point in time, based on the number of times he's been on base, that you would like to see Leody pushing 20 steals with a chance to get to 25 this year. So what does this mean? Well, here's the thought process. This has been a week, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But you certainly have to at least entertain the thought of, you look at what Leody is doing in the second half, and you look at what JP has done in a week, which is an incredibly small sample size. And granted, the first 2 months of the season, Leody had an OPS that flirted with 900. So on the one hand, he's capable of it. On the other hand, it also shows where he's dropped off. It also shows that any player is capable of getting hot and also going into a deep slump. And so either of those two things could apply to both Leody bouncing back, Leody slumping, or JP Martinez potentially potentially cooling off. But you look back at Leody Taveras since he started playing regularly. He missed first part of the season with that oblique injury, but he had a 935 OPS in May, 824 in June, 625 in July, 502 in August. Significant and steady decline as he has gotten more playing time and more exposure. That's got to be concerning for the Rangers. And when you get to the playoffs become, unless you've got a long, long track record, especially with a manager like Bruce Bochy, I think you're going to be looking at a straight meritocracy. And if the Rangers feel like at that point in time, JP Martinez gives them a better chance to win in the starting lineup than Leite Taveras, that's a conversation they're going to have. A real conversation. We will see how much playing time JP continues to get. All he's done is earn more opportunities. That's all you can ask of a guy to do when he gets a small chance. Right now, it's going to be hard if you do play Leite in center field on a regular basis, and JP plays left field some. And listen, Leite got a day off, much needed day off on Tuesday. Maybe he even gets Wednesday off today as I record this. I haven't seen the lineup yet. And then Thursday is a scheduled off day. Maybe that's a 3-day brain break, the brain vacation, and body vacation that allows you to regroup a little bit. Maybe that's a possibility. But if the Rangers continue to play Leite in center field, then you've got a situation in left where you've got Jankowski. Travis Jankowski has played really well, and he is a plus defender and also a plus base runner. Though probably doesn't have the speed that JP has. But both JP Martinez and Travis Jankowski left-handed hitters, so that gives you some issues potentially against left-handed pitching. That's where Robbie Grossman and Ezekiel Duran come in if Duran is not playing third base that night. So this is a good situation to have. Look, you call up an outfielder, you call up a player, and you want him to inject some degree of a different of a set of assets, and that is what JP Martinez has shown in a very short sample. And if the Rangers get to a situation where come September or come the playoffs, they're talking about, do you start JP Martinez in center field? It means he's done nothing but earn more playing time. If they get to a point where they don't have that discussion, or it's not much of a discussion, in all likelihood, it means Leite Taveras has rebounded some. So it's kind of situation that good teams put themselves in. All right, more minor league stuff. Jack Leiter, which has been not a great story this year. If anything, he's gone backwards in his second season as a pro, led to him being placed on the developmental list at Frisco the middle of July, has not pitched since. It's been a month since Jack Leiter has appeared in a game. He has been working on a program, as Chris Young told me on Friday in San Francisco, to kind of improve his direction and his timing with his release, because the Rangers just don't feel like that was working in the right frame or in the right time frame, right sequence. Early in the year, the Rangers asked Jack, or kind of ordered Jack, to throw fastballs much more often early in the count and not throw his breaking balls until he got ahead in the count. They tried that, had a little bit of success. Things then reverted backwards after about 3 weeks, and the Rangers took the next step. Does this mean Jack Leiter's a failure of a draft pick? Absolutely not. Does it mean that the timeline is longer? Yes, it does. I mean, you have to look at Jack Leiter more of a long-term project now, as opposed to what I think the Rangers maybe envisioned when they drafted him in 2021, that by the time they were ready to contend, maybe at the start of 2024, when they've beaten that schedule, that Jack would be a contender. I don't think you can look at the rotation next year and in any way, shape, or form say we expect Jack Leiter to be a contender for the rotation out of the gate. So that has slowed that down. And I think in part, that's why, the Rangers had to go out and acquire pitching at the deadline that had a year of control like Scherzer does, because you don't have the guys in the system at the top of the system coming along quite as fast as you thought. What I have heard is that Jack Leiter is making good progress, which is great. But I am also the kind of guy who doesn't put a lot of stock in bullpens. I don't put a lot of stock in batting practice for hitters. That's for coaches to get a feel where their players are physically. Still comes down to how do you perform in competition. It's a whole different level. And until Jack gets back on the mound and faces hitters, which maybe happens in September, maybe it's a AA level, I don't think you can get a firm grasp on where he stands. I think that it's been a disappointment that Leiter has not made more progress, but I also feel like this is a guy who is something of a perfectionist. I feel like this guy is following a little bit in his father's footsteps, who Al Leiter had command problems. Unfortunately, Al Leiter had injury issues early in his career too. But from late 20s up until he was 40, basically, Al Leiter was a very capable starting pitcher. The bad news about that is, look, if the Rangers don't get real contributions out of Jack Leiter before his late 20s, in all likelihood, it means somebody else is going to get the contributions. Al Leiter was a New York Yankee, was a Toronto Blue Jay, didn't really get big league success until he went to Florida in 1997 or 96. So the Rangers, next year is going to be an important year for Jack Leiter. They need to see him take some steps forward. If you need to take this year to get right, to get him to trust his fastball more, which was what the first project was in May, and if you go through the physical tweaks that you're going through right now, and you get him into a position where he can excel next year, this is a guy who can come along extremely fast. There's no question about the stuff. There's no question about his competitiveness or his work ethic. The question right now is strictly command and physical malfunctions, physical issues, not health issues, but physical issues with mechanical stuff, which I can't say because I'm words escape me now. I don't know why. Anyway, so before we dive deeper into my psyche and everything that is wrong with me and all of my inadequacies, we should cut it off here. I'm back next week from the road. I'll be in Arizona, so you won't have this backdrop. But Rangers begin a big road trip, Arizona, Minnesota, and the New York Mets on Monday. Big 3-city trip, and then they come home on Labor Day, face the Houston Astros. So another eventful 2 weeks as we head into the start of the September stretch drive. And hey, look, the Rangers set out this year to play meaningful baseball games in September. They absolutely will. So for me and us, you can't see the cat, can't see the dog sitting in the chair. The dog is asleep. I have put Bonnie to sleep with this ramble, and Austin as well. Until then, peace out, everybody.
this is good video.